saw the sea come after me as high as a great hill and as furious as an enemy which I had no means or strength to contend with. So begins the tale of the world's most famous castaway. I walked about on the shore, reflecting upon all my comrades that were drowned, and that there should be not one soul saved but myself. The castaway's name was, of course, Robinson Crusoe. Although he was a work of fiction, his creator, Daniel Defoe, was inspired by the account of a real castaway on a real island. And what he discovered there was even stranger than fiction. Little did he know that he was on an island of castaways, each plant and animal having found its own way of surviving. The name of the real-life Robinson Crusoe was Alexander Selkirk. Though he searched his island thoroughly, he found no Man Friday. He was absolutely alone. But the man differed from the other animal and plant castaways. After nearly 5 years of watching and waiting, Alexander Selkirk was finally rescued. The other castaways would remain. They either adapted or died on these faraway castaway islands. These real castaway islands are the Juan Fernandez Archipelago, 360 miles off the coast of Chile, on the southwestern edge of South America. They were born of massive volcanoes that rose explosively from the ocean floor. The elder of those islands was later named Robinson Crusoe. In the beginning, its bare, smoking crags were hostile to any living thing. As its peaks thrust skyward, they were able to capture ocean winds laden with moisture. The real Robinson Crusoe Island would be no desert island. Where there is water, there can be life. Water was essential for those first castaways that crossed the ocean to reach the young island. The first arrivals could have been born on the wind. Ferns have been doing this sort of thing forever. They are among the oldest plants on Earth. Each parent releases millions of lighter-than-air spores, and the wind does the rest. Another well-travelled family that blew in were the daisies. Once they reached the barren outcrop, they adapted and changed rapidly to exploit the new opportunities. There are now 30 different species of daisy, from creeping herb to tall tree. They are among the world's best plant opportunists. While many plants came on the wind, others were carried by birds or sailed on the high seas from lands as far away as New Zealand, Hawaii, even Japan. But one plant made a strange journey through time. Lactaurus fernandesiana looks like just another shrub, but its origins are a mystery. Neither it nor its relatives are known from anywhere but here. Its only connection is with some 80-million-year-old fossilized pollen grains found in Namibia, Africa. Just how it appeared on an island less than 5 million years old remains a complete mystery. All new arrivals face the same crisis, the need to reproduce. Plants like Gunnera use the wind to move pollen from flower to flower, and in that way find a mate. But what about plants that couldn't use the wind? What about those who needed insects, like honeybees, to fertilize their flowers? There were none. Their future would have been short-lived, one generation in some cases, were it not for another castaway. In a most remarkable coincidence, nature provided a savior. A hummingbird, the Juan Fernandez fire crown. Possibly blown by the wind across 360 miles of ocean from Chile, they arrived in the same way as many of the plants. Here they found what they needed, nectar, and so secured the survival of many different flowers. But they formed a special bond with this one, Sophora, a member of the pea family. The union is so perfect that the birds start breeding when it starts flowering. When the Sophora is in full bloom, the male firecrown performs a vigorous display. It not only attracts the green and white females, but also keeps other males away. When a stranger approaches, his calls become louder and longer, and if this doesn't work, he'll chase it away. On his return, the threat dissolves into a courtship dance to impress the female. Guarding territory and mating are the only part he will play in breeding. The female will be left to build the nest, lay and incubate the eggs, and then bring up hungry chicks all on her own. And the flowering Sophora will provide her with most of her energy needs. This intimate relationship guarantees a future for both bird and plant. The Sophora receives a reliable pollinator, and the hummingbird receives key nutrients when it needs them most. The future would be bleak, however, if either of them were to disappear. In the 4.5 million years since the island's violent birth, it's become a lifeboat for all manner of highly adapted castaway plants and animals. Tragically, however, this, their very special lifeboat, is sinking. Peaks that once rose 10,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean are now 1/4 that size. The island is under sentence of death. Already, most of it has been lost to the sea. Created by enormous explosive power, it's being destroyed by the subversive forces of erosion. The island is also riding on a continental plate that's both dragging it slowly down to its deep ocean birthplace and on toward the coast of Chile. And trailing 100 miles behind is another lifeboat, its younger brother, Alexander Selkirk Island. Younger by some 2.5 million years, erosion chisels unrelentingly at its sheer and forbidding profile. Yet before volcanic activity ceased, it would have been discovered by eager castaways. And like Alexander Selkirk, some castaways came by sea. One species discovered the island, came ashore and bred here. And every year since the first arrival of their ancestors, fur seals have returned. They are Juan Fernandez fur seals. Much of their time ashore is concerned with the politics and the dangers of a crowded colony. From an early age, pups spend a lot of their time in the shallow pools, away from their mothers. It would seem so easy for a mother to lose her pup in all the confusion. Remarkably, that does not often happen. If they become separated, they will know each other by smell and by call. And for very good reason, the pup must also understand where home is. The greatest threat to a pup is an angry bull. To get mating rights, a bull needs territory. And to get territory, they use muscle. Both size of voice and body add to a breeding bull's threat. But if threat doesn't work, then fur will fly. During battle, they have no regard for anything in their way. A male returning from the sea must confront several territory owners. They are fights he may not seek, but he cannot avoid them. Nothing in his path is safe, including pups. For newborns, staying close to mother gives some protection from the marauding bulls. She tries to give her youngster a strong sense of home, a place of safety where they will always meet up when separated. The lesson is sometimes difficult to learn. For those that do stray, there may be a heavy price to pay. Bulls cause many pup deaths during breeding season. If pups don't learn their lesson well, the only ones who benefit are the colony scavengers, the red-backed hawks. They are also castaways. Their ancestors made the long one-way flight all the way from Chile. They are guests at a bloody banquet of afterbirth and dead fur seals. Every day, as the sun climbs higher, the island's climate becomes a liability. A fur seal's coat has superb insulating qualities. It's the perfect design for life in cold water, but it may be a death trap in the hot sun. Juan Fernandez fur seals have had to adapt. As the sun rises higher, they begin to move. Even bulls that have fought ferociously for territory must abandon it. Toward midday, the movement becomes a mass exodus. The whole colony, desperate to cool off, heads for the sea. And by early afternoon, the enforced evacuation is complete. Beyond the shore, mixed groups of females and juveniles raft together. Fur seals relax head down, air bubbles streaming from fur that's so thick the cold water never touches the skin. Some bulls, those with territory on the beach, this is the one chance to relax, untroubled by all the battles to be waged on land. But other bulls do not leave their aggression on the beach. So strong is the need for all these fur seals to come to the sea that the rules of colony life come with them. These juveniles are in the wrong place. Patrolling his underwater territory, a bull utters deep, visceral grunts of aggression. The booming calls pierce the water, sending a powerful message to would-be aggressors. He roams his borders, a sleek torpedo of highly charged menace, challenging everything. A sudden release of bubbles adds to the threat. It may be enough to frighten a rival. As on land, if threats don't work, then fury will follow. These bulls have no beach territories, but their drive is exactly the same. They're attempting to control the space where females gather. The pursuit of underwater territory can be fraught with danger, but these bulls are often successful in fathering young. Nowhere in the world is this behaviour as intense as among these fur seals, all trying to beat the heat. In the late afternoon, the fur seals begin their return to the land. And just as they have adapted their use of territory to the demands of island life, so too have the red-backed hawks. All that food down at the seal colony not only gives them time to play, but brings hawks to live close together. Normally, they're fiercely territorial and aggressive. On the island, they've learned to socialise in groups. Games like this help curb their natural antagonism toward one another. For these castaways, and for many others, the islands became a paradise, a Garden of Eden. There was a chance to begin a new life here. In this way, a balance was established. But that balance did not last. In 1574, the Spanish explorer Juan Fernandez became the first person to set eyes on these islands. Goats were put ashore for those unfortunate enough to be marooned here. Goat meat certainly fed Alexander Selkirk. But unwittingly, they began a process that was to change the islands forever. The goats were an invasion force against which the plant life had no defences. They have destroyed much on both islands. In the past 400 years, one of the last places on Earth to experience human presence has been thoroughly exploited. In the fishing village of San Juan Bautista on Robinson Crusoe Island lived descendants of the first permanent settlers. Though the monthly boat is an essential lifeline to the mainland, the people are castaways of choice. They depend on the sea for their livelihood. But over the years, the people have brought other castaways and a few stowaways to the island. Some of these fellow travellers escaped and have combined to form an invasion force of great destructive power. The rabbits brought over for food are now literally eating the island. A combination of logging, goats and rabbits have stripped the lower slopes, opening up the land to the forces of wind and rain. And what wasn't eaten or washed away is likely to be smothered. Half of the 400 species of plant now found here are recent invaders, and every year there are more. One of the most highly invasive is blackberry. It's spread at an alarming rate, choking the island's native flora. Under sustained attack by this occupying army, many native plants have retreated to become refugees in their own homeland. Many of the treasures of 4.5 million years of evolution now cling desperately to the edge of life on sheer cliffs and remote hilltops. Who knows what secrets these plants may conceal? If they go, who knows what the future might be to the island's unique balance? Some are almost beyond help. The survival of this species rests now with this one plant. There are no others. It and other species face certain extinction unless they can be helped. There is now a race against time to secure the island's biological future. An international team of botanists has discovered that these beleaguered island castaways can tell incredibly clear stories of evolution. In looking at ways of protecting these plants, they've discovered that it takes surprisingly little genetic change to make a new species. The island is one of the best living laboratories in the world, and in the rush to save its plants, scientists are using genetic analysis to gain vital information on how and why new species evolve. The possibilities that could flow from this work will be far-reaching, but right now it's day-to-day survival. This daisy is confined to one small fortress of rock surrounded by ocean. But now the rabbit has arrived. Its fortress has become a prison. The species teeters on the brink of extinction. In defeating the rabbit, here and on Robinson Crusoe, the only solution is war. With the archipelago now a World Biosphere Reserve, the Chilean government and international agencies have begun the counterattack. The task ahead is colossal. It'll require a full-scale military-style campaign. But without this commitment, one of the world's botanical gems will be lost forever. The top priority is those refugees, literally clinging onto the edge of life. Park rangers from CONAF, the Forest Department of Chile, take enormous risks in their attempts to reach them. For some plants, their only chance is rescue. The rangers gently collect cuttings for attempted propagation. There are very few native Chenopodium left growing in the wild. These seedlings in the nursery represent their hope for the future. By careful nurture, each new wisp of green brings this species another step back from the brink of extinction. From the nursery, CONAF has given some Chenopodium seedlings into the care of the people of the island. It makes an excellent hedge. So successful has this project been that other plants in peril now flourish in the township. Every one of them represents a crisis averted. A plant saved could give new life to others. Juan Fernandez firecrowns are now extremely rare, but the growth of new plants in the town may help them to hang on. But vulnerability extends to creatures far beyond this troubled island. It even extends to birds that pursue silver shoals across the wide ocean. Two species of petrels, birds of the ocean vastness, return only to the forests of Alexander Selkirk Island. On its lower slopes, most of the trees have been stripped bare by goats and fire. But just how safe is their haven? In search of an answer, CONAF rangers must climb up through a remote, heavily eroded jungle toward the roof of the island. Surprisingly, the survival of the ocean birds is linked closely to the health of this small, primeval forest at the very summit. The birds don't come here for food. They do come here for shelter. They find sanctuary deep in this island within an island. But its true significance is apparent only at nightfall. At dusk, the petrels begin to flock close to the island. Soon the air is filled with wheeling, soaring silhouettes. And still they keep coming. Only when it's completely dark do they fly to their hilltop homes. They don't land immediately, but circle the small forest many times, attempting to pinpoint the location of their burrows. How they navigate in the dark is a mystery. But after perhaps half an hour of circling, they land, always very close to their burrows. With so much of the islands in the hands of occupying alien forces, rangers must monitor the health of the population. Petrels can easily fly over many thousands of miles of ocean, but they need a safe place to breed. Over 1 million petrels nest in an area of less than 700 acres. If anything should happen to their forest, they are doomed. Extinction can strike quickly on small, isolated islands and may come from any direction. The remarkable nature of these islands by no means ends at the rocky shore. The forces of erosion slowly destroying the islands of Robinson Crusoe and Alexander Selkirk have created an undersea landscape that's vitally important to those whose livelihood is fishing. Fishermen know and understand this erupted and eroded jumble of sea floor because it offers an ideal home for their quarry, the highly prized Juan Fernandez lobster. Living at depths ranging from 30 to 300 feet, the adults never stray too far from the safety of rocky crevices. Such a lifestyle that would have prevented the first lobsters from walking to the newly created island. So how did lobsters travel here, across the vast Pacific Ocean? They didn't walk. They were carried on the current, like many other castaways. Their journey would have begun with a ritual performed by every female lobster. That ritual takes her out to the edge of the reef. A female lobster may carry 500,000 eggs under her tail, which she then broadcasts in great clouds. They quickly hatch and develop into tiny mobile larvae. The larvae soon become part of the plankton, drifting at the mercy of the ocean currents. With many stages and a long larval life of up to 18 months, those that survive the perils of ocean life can voyage great distance. In the current, that great highway of the ocean, the tiny planktonic creatures travel with powerful ocean-going fish, such as these yellowtail. And using the currents, they would have all traveled across the vast Pacific from the west. Underwater slopes of the young islands attracted marine life travelling on the passing current and offered a place to call home. The rock jumble and turbulent food-rich waters have meant that lobsters have thrived. Spending most of the day hidden, they emerge at dusk and spend the night feeding. They'll eat almost anything. They're scavengers, and this often lands them in trouble. It takes 8 years for lobsters to become full-grown. It takes only moments for them to become the main economic resource for the islanders. Lobsters attracted the main wave of human colonization earlier this century. They were in such abundance near the water's edge that boathooks often struck into them. Though fishing methods have changed little in half a century, the number of lobsters and their size has. Overfishing has taken a heavy toll. Big catches and big lobsters are now only a distant memory. There are now measures in place to retain good numbers of lobsters. The simplest is to restrict the catch below a certain length and they're returned to the sea. But perhaps the few large ones that are caught, particularly females capable of producing hundreds of thousands of eggs, should also be returned. It's the universal dilemma of fishing. If, however, the measures do not work, and demand for lobsters outstrips supply, then the islanders will face as bleak a future as the lobsters. Unlike the lobsters, fish inhabit the reef in vast numbers. But strangely, there are very few species. And most of their ancestors seem to have come from far away across the Pacific, rather than from the Chilean coast, which is much closer. The reason the journey of marine life from the coast of Chile is almost impossible is the Humboldt current. It sweeps up from Antarctica, creating a wall of cold water that's impassable for most fish. For these reef dwellers, South America might be 1 million miles away. So they live on the most remote islands in the largest ocean in the world. Like new arrivals above water, marine life became part of a new order. A balance was achieved. Relationships developed. A cleaner wrasse has set up station at a strategic rock. Ever since it opened for business, it's never been short of customers. The pampanitos and other small fish take the opportunity to rid themselves of troublesome parasites. For the wrasse, the reward is food. But not all mouths are to be inspected. A moray eel. There's one under practically every rock. From here, they will lunge at any passing fish. Although the open mouth posture appears menacing, it is in fact breathing, pumping water across its gills. A dead fish attracts any morays in the area. They literally tie themselves in knots as they auger chunks of flesh from the carcass. Many of these reef fish belong to species found nowhere else in the world. The reason being that once here, they too became castaways. Trapped in the strong currents that swirl around the islands, new generations are held close to the shore where they repopulate the reefs instead of being swept out to sea. And like the animals, plants are locked in this giant eddy. Few species of marine algae grow here. They too have found these remote islands difficult to colonize, yet impossible to escape. The Juan Fernandez fur seals are castaways of land and sea. They look to the ocean currents for their food, but it's to the land that they must return to breed. Pups keep cool in the middle of another hot day. Some are also waiting for their mothers to return from the sea with food. The islands are so remote that a mother will go beyond the swirling currents and swim up to 600 miles in search of squid and fish. An extraordinary feat for a nursing mother fur seal. On her return, she must find her pup. The mammoth effort she puts into finding food is matched only by the endurance of the pups. Some of them have been without food for almost 2 weeks, waiting for their mother's return. It's now that the lesson about where home is becomes critical. Will she find her pup among all the others? Will the pup remember her call? And will it remember where it was born, which is where it must meet her? Even if the response is a little slow, the pup's homing mechanism is working well. At last, the reunion. But before the meal, a final identity check. They investigate each other's odours. A sniff is all it takes to confirm their relationship. The pup can now claim the long-awaited drink. Juan Fernandez fur seal milk is higher in fat than other species. It needs to be. In just 5 days, the mother will again return to the sea. Happy scenes like these give hope for the survival of all species on these castaway islands. It's hard to believe these fur seals were once considered extinct. At the beginning of the 19th century, sealers slaughtered an estimated 5 million. 20 years later, there were virtually none left. Most of the island's castaways were marooned a long time ago, but occasionally a modern castaway turns up, proving it's a process that never stops. This is a male subantarctic fur seal. His main breeding grounds are in the South Atlantic and the Indian Oceans, 4,000 miles from Alexander Selkirk Island. Here, he faces the same problem as all new castaways, the need to reproduce. He attempts to carve out a territory among the Juan Fernandez bulls. Who knows? He may mate successfully, and a new species may eventually arise. Success as a castaway means adapting to a new situation. It's something which marks the undoubted achievements of everything from daisy bushes to hummingbirds. It's what gave the real Robinson Crusoe the ability to survive here on his own for more than 4 years. After his rescue, Alexander Selkirk found that he too had become something of an islander, that he could not adjust to the rigors of the outside world. He sorely missed the tranquility of life as a castaway. As he said, "I am now worth £800, but I shall never be so happy as when I was not worth a farthing." Some animals and plants have proved ill-equipped to cope with the presence of invaders on their islands. Rescue may come from the efforts now taking place. But hope must also come from their resilience and adaptability, qualities that helped them survive when they first came ashore on these castaway islands.